Everyone ready?
You're on.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening everyone and welcome to the Lincolnville Town Budget Committee. And just for the benefit of the people at home, if we can just go around the table and introduce ourselves. Robin, we'll start with you.
Robin Tarantino, Budget Committee.
Okay.
And John Williams, Budget Committee.
Kayla Lacombe, Finance Director.
David Kinney, Town Administrator.
Reed Matthews, Budget Committee.
Dottie Lampia, Budget Committee.
Patria Allen, Budget Committee.
Gary Schwab, Budget Committee. Thank you all for that. Okay, let's move on. We're tonight going to review the Board of Selectmen's recommendations for the budget. David is kind enough and handed out a new updated version. I hope everyone has that. Everyone got one? Okay, great. All right, so David, I think it's up to you. You're on.
I'm on. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Well, as Gary alluded to, I want to make sure everybody has the most recent, which has...
Shouldn't we approve the prior meeting?
Oh, thank you, Robin. Okay.
Sorry, the January 26th one.
The 22nd.
22nd, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
yes, January 22nd.
I'll entertain a motion to approve January 22nd minutes. Reed?
I do not have.
You don't have them.
I don't think any of this. Kayla, did you print off any of them?
I did not print them off.
I didn't get to.
I think you emailed them,
I
right?
was so efficient last time. I went home from this meeting and
Wherever you
wrote them up.
I had.
And all I did was send them to Kayla. I never sent them to the
You
rest
just
of the
started.
group.
We can
So
do it next
I
time.
sent them at 5:30 tonight.
Play practice
But,
went over.
I emailed them to everybody at 5:30.
5:30.
We could certainly go hit the go button,
Dude.
print your bunch, and
Did we, everyone have a chance to review the minutes?
No.
No. If not, we could table it, and if we have time later on, we can do that. Okay, David, you're on.
hang on. So I want to make sure everybody, again, is working from the same sheet of music, so to speak. In the lower left-hand corner of the latest version, it says BOS, recommended March 25th, 2019. The Board of Selectmen last night at their regular Selectmen's meeting made their final revisions to their recommendations for the upcoming fiscal year. And that was incorporated into the budget document you have in front of you today. And I'm more than happy to go over any and all of it as we go. I probably will focus more on things that have changed since you heard the presentations, but I'll try to hit the highlights or lowlights along the way.
Just the two things that I'm hoping to hear about is the street lights at the beach
Yep.
and the $20,000 saving for buying out the solar panels. So when you get there, just
Re-emphasize that, turn to look towards you. I'm sitting in a lousy spot. Yeah.
David, just for clarification on page 2, the percent change column, we'll just look at the first one, administration and finance, percent change 3.5%, Board of Selectmen's recommendation, and then the Board of Selectmen versus fiscal year 19 change 4.3%. So technically then they increased that line item 1.2% then? Is that the way I'm reading this?
They increased that line 0.8% over what was initially requested,
3.5.
but 4.3%
I'm sorry.
more than what
Yeah,
was
point
approved
eight.
last year.
I'm sorry, yes.
And I'll hit on all those as we go,
Okay.
if that works.
Yeah.
Certainly by excuse me, all means, any means, if you have some questions as we go along, holler. I will say that rate as it stands right now, and this will be on the last page of the budget, the Selectmen's recommendation for fiscal year 20 is $69,884 more than fiscal year 19 that we're currently in. The net to property taxpayers is actually down $23,196 because of revenues, other revenues. But we'll get to that towards the end of this. Probably we might as well start at the beginning. It's a great place to start on page 4. welcome a few faces that I haven't seen at too many budget meetings this year. I'm glad, Reed, you're able to join us. Ed? You too. So if I go too fast, although you've heard this spiel how many times? Reed? 16? From me. Anyhow, administration. Budget for new tables next year, or at least tighten that up. Whoops. I've heard people say I had a screw
right over
loose,
there.
and now it's been confirmed.
The screw loose is
Yep.
out.
It's a vote.
Oh, good.
Okay. We're prepared.
Don't need any more paperwork.
Back to all seriousness. The administration and finance budget is, the initial request was 3.46% up from last year. The selectmen have recommended 4.34%. And the only change, I think, from what was initially requested versus what is now recommended, and why the change between the two is the Board of Selectmen completed the performance evaluation of the town administrator and offered to give him a raise in the coming year.
And he accepted.
He would never decline.
Still thinking about it.
No,
Congratulations.
thank you.
I don't know if it was adequate, just meet your needs.
The other, thank you. The other part of this that is again unique to this year, that only occurs periodically, that I want to make sure we point out, is this year has a 53rd pay week in it. Regular, I hate to use the word regular, but regular employees, people that get paid every week for the town, get paid on Tuesdays. This coming fiscal year, we have 53 Tuesdays in the year versus 52, so we've carried an extra week's worth of pay in the budget. Administration and finance are the 4 full-time town office employees and 1 part-time, and all the supplies, equipment, and expenses involved in operating those offices. And I don't know how much detail you want me to go in, and so I'll kind of look around and see if.
The 53rd week pay is going to show up across all the departments, right?
Well, a lot of our positions are yearly stipends.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm going to pick on the road commissioner is going to get his annual stipend, and that's not going to, we pay him twice a year. So you won't see it there, you won't see the selectmen. Code enforcement, you'll see it. Yeah, so I'll have to point it out as we go, or try.
But in theory, shouldn't we have 51 Tuesdays in the following year?
I'd like to think so, but we won't. It's either 52 or
Is
53.
it a leap year next year?
You would think there would be.
It's just the way the calendar moves.
Is next year a leap year?
Yes.
Yeah,
Wait,
next
it's
year's
on
leap
Sunday.
year, so that probably,
We'll be back to 52. It occurs like once every 6 or 7 years. We have that 53rd week. And anyhow,
That's what it is.
if we have 51, it's one of the things I check on in my, or ask the finance director
I counted twice to make sure I was
to
right.
check every year, because if you short yourself, funny thing about employees, they do like to get paid. So anyhow, any questions on administration and finance?
Probably a dumb one, but
No, there's
on
not.
page 5,
Yep.
there, you've lined out also includes budget committee board of appeals for supplies.
Yeah, oh, that's good. I'm glad you caught that, because that was a change that the selectmen made when we put together the initial budget requests. We put, or under boards and committees that we'll talk about later, we rolled all the supplies for boards and committees in administration and finance, and the selectmen said that they'd prefer that not be the case, that we kind of continue to, in an effort of, I guess, in transparency and knowing that there are expenses involved with some of these committees that we assigned dollars to the committees, and so we took it back out of supplies here. Should be $300 lower. Where's supplies? Yeah, third line up from the bottom. The initial request was $5,000, and the selectmen reduced that to $4,700. When we get to boards and committees, they've increased it by $300. Any others? There's a couple of spots where we've struck things out or added things in, and I'll try to remember those, but I'm glad you asked that question, Robin. Shall I move on, Mr. Chair, or? Okay, moving on to page 6. Animal control, there's no change since the initial request. We're required by statute to have an animal control officer. We choose to hire a part-time employee, and she receives an annual stipend. So there is not a 53rd week in the animal control officer. I will note for the animal control officer and general, all the employees across the board, the selectmen applied a 2.8% cost of living adjustment, and some employees in addition received a step increase, one employee, and then me, different.
David, on the ACO, I'm just curious, what percentage of her cell phone do we cover? Do you know?
When we initially did it, I think it was 25% of her cost, but I'm not. That's reaching into the back of my memory, because it's been a number of years we've done that.
And then her part-time would be, what percentage would you say her part-time status is? Would that be 25% as well, or? Well,
she does animal control services for, I believe, 7 towns. And it varies. There are certain duties that the ACO is required to do in terms of making sure that unlicensed dogs get licensed.
Okay.
We give her a list. If all the dog owners were responsible, her job would be a lot easier. Unfortunately, not all dog owners take the dog licensing statute seriously, so she ends up chasing them. And then the rest of the time is solely based on calls for service.
And just so everybody knows, if you have a problem with an animal such as a fox, that she will only respond if you think that it is unhealthy, sick, possibly with rabies. So just bear that in mind if you're in need of help.
Yeah, the animal control officer, I hate to keep turning around. I need to sit over there. Animal control officer is for domestic animals or animals that may be suspected to have rabies. Even then, she's not really gonna run right out and grab a hold of it, let's hope. If you have a wild animal, falls to the game wardens, who may or may not be of great assistance.
Sorry.
No, we had a sick fox walking around our neighborhood, and they were just watched it. Apparently they wanted to shoot it, but it was on someone's property, so they couldn't. So our neighbor called and said, if you don't have a gun, we do, we can shoot it for you. But we said, whatever, let it wander off.
Well, if it's rabid, it should take.
I think it might have been hit by a car or something, and it seemed like it didn't look rabid, it wasn't acting crazy. I think it was just recovering from something. But they were responsive. They were there, they sat there for hours, just watching it, waiting for it to go on the road so they could shoot it.
Smart fox.
Exactly.
All right,
Well,
we're digressing a little here.
Well,
We move
actually,
on.
I did have a question about the cell phone that you brought up, because it said you said we reimburse 25% or so, but then if there's 7 towns, does that mean some of the towns don't reimburse
Yes,
everything?
most definitely.
So, okay.
Back when that was established, one of the ACO actually had asked for an increase in compensation, and one of her rationale was, I have this expense and I'm using it so much for this, and the selectman said, well, if that's the case, we'll be willing to give you a portion of your communication costs. It's not solely cell phone. I think part of that cost may also be her internet cost. And she accepted it, didn't turn it down with that.
So presumably, if she comes and wanted to increase her compensation in the future, we could point her to one of the towns that's not reimbursing her for some of her expenses.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Oh.
Well, we could point her that way.
Point her that
Do what we
way.
want, yeah.
We could ask.
And I will say she does a relatively good job.
We've had fairly good luck, and there isn't an employee that couldn't do a little bit better, or.
Right, I said fairly, meaning,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's a 24-hour job, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There isn't any one of us that's available that for our employment.
No.
All right, gonna turn the page to protection parking enforcement. There has been no change for what was requested. I will note that the request is substantially lower than last year because we're trying to match more with what we think we'll use for service versus what last year we guesstimated what we could possibly obtain. Page 8 is Protection Fire Department. Selectmen are recommending what was requested by the fire chief. I'll see if I can explain any of that if somebody needs to.
Well, we had the fire chief in
Mm-hmm.
here. We
Yeah, and
talked
this-
about how they were over budget because of unforeseen truck repairs and things, so
And the
nothing's changed since then.
now the selectmen requested some additional information from the fire chief regarding truck maintenance, and we're apparently satisfied with the answers because they hadn't recommended any change.
The request is actually a little bit lower than the 19 budget too.
Yep. $110, I think.
Mm-hmm. When's the truck, David? That's next year?
The fire truck purchase will be in this coming fiscal year. It's about to be advertised for bid right now. Expecting pricing back in April. And hopefully we'll have an article at town meeting to appropriate the money.
Mm-hmm.
We've always raised and appropriated the money in the past, but we received a gift a couple of years ago, which towns voted to accept it, but they didn't appropriate it. So in order to actually expend that money, we'll need to have an article in there to approve the expenditure of funds.
You mentioned in the past you were gonna check to see if there was a prepayment discount.
We are actually, in the bid package, going to ask for pricing based on everything
schedule.
from paying at the end to paying it all up front, and see what we get for a response back from various vendors.
Good. All right, let's move on.
All right, moving on to
Here
page
comes
protection other. I'm gonna turn and talk to John for a minute. Streetlights?
Yeah, streetlights.
What do you wanna know about
Oh,
sidewalk lights?
I think we still have the old lights on the street, but I see all the money things still,
Woohoo! No.
if I saw it right.
No, we took it out of one account and put it on the capital and moved it to another.
Okay.
But we have not expended any of the money on the sidewalk light changes yet. It's one of those things that unfortunately hasn't risen to the top of the pile to do as yet,
Yeah.
but will be done.
Well, spring's coming, it'll be warmer and more conducive to, for somebody to go do the work.
Climbing up a pole and
Yeah.
freezing your fingers.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
Would the solar powers that we're producing over yonder go
Mhm.
towards the cost of the streetlights, or the use of them?
Not the street lights, but the sidewalk lights, yes. Street lights, town has 13 street lights.
Right,
Which we currently lease from Central Maine Power Company.
okay.
The selectmen have had limited discussion about converting those to LED lights as well. We were going on a tour last night, but they decided they'd do it individually rather than as a group. We have pricing to convert those, the existing streetlights. Streetlights you rent basically by the month, but it's by the year, and includes the electrical cost because they know what it is, and that way they don't have a meter on each one, because they know it comes on when, there's only so many hours a day
Right,
this
right.
year. All the other electric meters that we have that are within the municipal budget, those all get credit from the solar array.
Okay, but there's no way of doing the streetlights?
That's not part of the game, unfortunately.
Okay. How does one, I won't take up time on that
Go
one.
ahead, go ahead.
No, but how would that become part of the game?
For the rules to change in Augusta, I guess, or was
Okay,
CP
see, yeah,
or
okay.
something. It's just the way that's, it's the way the system's set up. We're not treated any differently than anybody else.
Oh, no, I
It's
realize
just-
that, I just think the change needs to be made, especially with power company we have.
But we would pay for the change to LED.
Yeah, actually, because of the length of the contracts we have with our other lights, we can get those exchanged at no cost to the town. And then we would in essence get about a $400 a year savings because it uses less electricity. But you have to sign up for a period of time. Again, the selectmen haven't chosen that. They had a committee look at the various streetlights and make recommendations as to location, necessity, on, and they just need to decide which ones they wish to keep and which ones they wish to eliminate and which ones they wish to relocate.
Were
if
you
any.
saying $400 for each light?
No,
$400 in total?
yes.
For the year.
We have, again, 13 streetlights. It costs us, round numbers, $120 a piece for the year. So,
$10 a month.
yeah, $10 a month goes.
Don't LEDs put out, I mean, it's a little bit of a power savings, but aren't they like broader spectrum and really bright?
It
and-
depends on what you
Okay.
purchase. We
Okay.
have recommendations on, John's gonna help me, color, wavelength, whatever the proper,
Well,
The
2000 Kelvin,
yeah,
yeah.
you're getting out of my comfort zone for knowledge and expertise.
But that's being addressed.
Yes.
If I heat Kayla's cup up, it's a black body, and if I heat that up to 3000 degrees Kelvin, then it'll glow at the color that these lights will if they're 3000 K lights.
All right. Satisfied with the streetlights?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on.
Everything on that page was as previously requested.
I just have a question
Yep.
on legal services. I know we kind of earmark a chunk of dollar in that, knowing what might present itself during that fiscal year. Do you have any inkling of any maybe big issues that might be coming up during this fiscal year?
The upcoming fiscal year, we will have an article, I guess you have to define big. We're gonna have an article at town meeting requesting permission to clear a title for what we believe is a tax acquired parcel on Coleman Pond. That's probably, we're gonna be in court with State of Maine, Revenue Services, the IRS, Department of Labor. Everybody had a claim against this individual that owned the property. I'm going to say if we end up with similar to the last one, that's probably a $5,000 effort by the time we're done. Unfortunately, it looks like we will be in court probably before the next fiscal year regarding some of the remnants of Richard Rosenberg's properties up on 11 Cellar Pond.
Oh, Richard.
He lives on.
He does.
That's an interesting situation, to say the least.
But no big lawsuits that you see coming down the pipe? Okay.
Not that I see coming, but
So that you feel comfortable with that amount budgeted?
yeah, we are looking at, as of January 1st, 2020, an increase in our legal services rate. We're going to, I believe it's $190 an hour, which I still think is a bargain, but
It's pretty, yeah, it's
hopefully
low.
Sally's not watching from Portland. But,
No, it's a reasonable rate,
yeah, so
unfortunately.
that's a big,
I know,
it's very challenging to predict. If you look back, we haven't expended a whole lot last fiscal year or halfway through this fiscal year, but some of
Never
that's
know.
some of that's out of our control, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. Anything else on that page? Okay, let's move on.
Town office building, the request was actually increased by the Board of Selectmen by $300 for a recommendation that we have a inspection and testing of
Security.
the smoke, fire, intrusion, alarm system here at the town office versus thinking it works.
Intrusion? Oh, you mean like burglar?
Yeah,
Security system.
I use intrusion, not to encourage some poor behavior. But burglar alarm.
Does that help with your insurance, if you have that done? Do you know?
Have it tested or have it here?
No, does your insurance company
I don't know.
embrace that, like give you a discount if you maintain that, or or is that an expectation of theirs?
They haven't asked it on the application.
Yeah, we're in the process of doing the renewal.
I wonder if you say, we do this testing, and you give a little more discount.
Well, they do. Well, we can ask. We can
Yeah.
try. What's the
Or
worst
you
thing?
say it's
What's the
not
worst that
working.
can happen? Right. Oh, we need to put it up because you think you're going to be broken into. No. They do. They do send somebody down. I think it's about every other year to go either every other year or every location every other year. So they do half of them one year, half the next. It's basically a loss control specialist that comes and goes through our buildings and looks for, things that you either shouldn't be doing or make
Okay.
recommendations for changes or improvements, and then hopefully we do them.
I suppose if the system were broken, and then a burglar breaks in and costs a lot of money, the insurance company, maybe they could say, I assume they're giving you the town a discount because you have the alarm system. My house has a, fire alarm hooked up to the telephones and all that, so I get $100 off. So I've always been scared if I ever leave the house and I don't set the alarm and then a fire starts and nobody gets called, they'll say, we're not paying, thank you for the premiums all these years, but you didn't, follow through, so I think it's good to check.
Yeah. Anything else on this page? No.
Nothing changed with the contingency requests. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time there unless you want to.
We'll move on.
Code enforcement, nothing's changed with the request. I will note, to Robin's earlier question about 53rd pay weeks. We have included the 53rd pay week in the CEO's wages, as well as the 2.8%, but it looks like 4.8%, but roughly 2% is for the extra week, and the other 2.8 is the original change.
Okay, move on.
Assessing is our assessors agent's contract. That's a contracted position. He's a contractor to us. No change in from the initial request.
How many years are on that contract?
It's an annual contract.
Oh, it is on.
Yep.
Okay.
He's been with us for over 10 years.
That's Vern, right?
Yeah. Page 15 is Public Works, Highways, and Bridges. I don't believe the selectmen made any change in that. No, same number. It's a 2.8% increase from the current year.
I have a question.
You go ahead.
Winter road maintenance, is that just for sanding and plowing the roads, or is there other contributing factors?
If you look down at the very bottom of that page, Dottie, there's a little breakdown.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that side.
No, that's no problem. That's our winter road maintenance contract, so that's the plowing and sanding. We have the cost for plowing the beach parking lot within Public Works, Highways, and Bridges. And then the purchase of winter sand and the salt.
So that's the total cost of the winter maintenance of roads?
Roads and the beach parking
Right.
lot. Yep.
Thank you.
I'm just curious because of that email you sent earlier in the week, I think, about power company trimming trees. And we have tree and brush trimming in here, but this is not the same.
Yeah, this is not them. This is things that we take down, trees that look like they're gonna fall in the road. We try to get them before they do, or once they're in the road, we have somebody cut them up. And a lot of times the fire department will, but they don't usually pick them up. They usually just cut them up and roll them over, and somebody else comes along, picks them up. Then brush cutting, just to keep stuff from growing into the road.
We did not run out of either sand or salt this year, did we?
I won't say we have a limitless supply of salt, but they have a pretty good pile up in Sandport, which they truck to us on a as-needed basis. We call and order it.
In other words, we didn't go over budget.
We have not gone over budget. We did purchase additional sand this winter.
It seemed to be, the shed was out at one point.
The shed was pretty close to empty at one point.
It was empty. It was empty. So, I didn't look inside the shed, the main shed. I'm talking about the shed for
people's.
Oh, the residents?
Yeah.
residents.
Well, it's full now.
So
I just was wondering, I didn't bother going over.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was a matter that they just hadn't taken the time to fill the residence shed.
Sometimes the contractor isn't quite as observant of the resident shed as sometimes you could be. If you get there as a resident and there's none there, give us a holler and we'll holler.
No, but, so was the main shed almost empty?
At one point, yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's probably why our shed was.
So, there's a resident shed, so the
Yeah,
residents.
I know, I was waiting to get a word in edgewise there.
So we have a three-sided building. The second red building, as you go in, you actually can see it from here.
Here.
You can see the open side. We keep a limited quantity of winter sand in that building.
Mixed with
A little bit of salt.
two 5-gallon bucket
Limit.
limit at a time.
There you
Oh,
go.
I didn't know that.
I had no idea.
So I have to buy sand and salt now.
Budget did more this year than, huh? Now you guys announced it all.
Yes, I'm well aware.
We better increase that budget now, the whole town just heard that, right?
That's a long time Lincolnville thing only.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
nice
it
little
looks like there's
thing for the
enough
town.
dirt out there to last the whole winter.
The piles in the yard are gravel.
Oh, for roads.
And, yeah, and we've been trucking it out, and putting it on the gravel roads, or the mud roads,
Yes,
or
I
whatever,
saw
to
them
beat
today
to beat the
doing
band.
Yeah.
So you could just drive your car up, fill up 2 buckets and leave? Do you
That's
need
it.
to check in with the town or anything, no?
Yeah, make sure you.
But they're watching.
There is a sign that says to check in with us, but
Okay.
if you give us
And-
a call or.
And most people do.
Most people do or they don't?
Well,
Okay.
Well,
we don't know, because we're not watching it 24/7.
Gotcha.
Most honest people do.
Okay,
or other people just don't remember because they're old.
you know.
You usually.
Okay, good. Learn something new every day.
I have a question. Oh, what roads are gonna be paved this year?
If you look somewhere down there on the
Yeah, yeah.
paving program right up from winter maintenance, you'll see Youngtown Road is on the schedule for
Mhm.
this year.
Oh, okay.
Paving
I'm
program.
just doing a jump over there, you know?
They all, like I said,
We'll also have some
That's not our responsibility.
minor cross culverts paving around town. but-
Youngtown needs a lot of work.
Our roads are so much
Did you
better.
get a
than
DOT
roads.
schedule?
Do a good job.
152 and 173.
Yes.
All good now.
How far away are we?
Oh, well, we're informed of what they plan to do in the coming year, which is not any of the back roads, but they do plan to put a light cap, this is DOT, if anybody hadn't heard the question from Reed, they do plan on putting light capital paving, which is about as skinny as you can lay down pavement, from the Camden Town line to the beach road, and then start by Carver's Lane, by Windsor Chair, and go through to Northport.
And it's
This
on
year.
Route 1.
Route 1, yeah, because that stretch of road is horrendous.
Yeah, that's bad.
You put the rough road ahead signs.
Hmm.
Yeah, we'll go back to,
But there is no long-term schedule of which of our roads.
they have a long-term schedule that I'm sure if we asked, they would share, but it's all subject to change. They put out a work plan, which includes so many dollars for,
Is it every 7 years theoretically?
yeah,
It's never sooner than that, is it?
it could be,
Yeah.
if the condition of the road warrants it.
But past memory says that let it go so bad the governor had to come down to find out.
Well, I.
173, yeah.
52, like, yeah.
All right, any more questions on?
No, on the Youngtown Road, I'll just comment, I was on my bike the other day, going right past Rosie's place.
Yep.
Yeah, coming downhill, so I can go
It's a
pretty
lot of
fast.
fun.
And so I think it was him who pulled out in the truck just after I went past his driveway. I keep looking at the mirror on his helmet, I keep looking and he's not passing me, he's just going real slow, and I thought, what's with this, he's following me. Pretty soon I figured out he's gonna really go faster.
He gets some good air there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just where John's referring to, there's a deep culvert that was replaced in that location. And in my estimation, the material that went back in was better than the rest of the road. So the rest of the road is more susceptible to frost and heaves up, and that culvert stays down, so it creates a dip. And when the frost is gone, that road will be pretty close to smooth again.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Keep an eye on that one.
I had a question also on the beach parking lot plowing.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like whoever plows it, they you know all those little islands that stick out and divide the parking into sections? He just drives over them, bumpity bump, just goes right across, so my wife noticed that, cause she sometimes plants in those little islands. She said, he's gonna
Yeah.
strip everything.
The
clean.
diagonals, the islands in the diagonal spot, you mean?
The little
in the beach.
peninsulas that stick out, you know, they're about this wide.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
the
on the diagonal.
Yeah, they're
Parking,
on the
yeah.
diagonal, yeah.
The diagonal
So-
parking, the town doesn't plow the diagonal parking,
Okay,
but our friends at Maine Department of Transportation occasionally wing their shoulders back and just drag that wing
Yeah.
up and over whatever's out there.
yeah. I told her it's probably a lost cause, cause when it's snowing and you just gotta go, you know, I can see it'll just drive over it.
Yep.
Okay.
We could take on that responsibility and keep that parking cleared if you wanna budget some more money and
No, it's okay.
save the flower bed.
I think it's very nice, the group that are volunteering their time to maintain those gardens. And
Oh, no doubt about it.
so maybe they could just get some big barrels and put it out in the way of the plows.
That won't stop that plow. Sorry.
All right, let's move on to Public Works
Move on.
Transfer Station.
Public Works Transfer Station is, nothing's changed. It's a pass, in essence, a pass-through. That amount's established by the Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation Board of Directors.
Did they find a new manager for the?
They have not found a new manager as yet. If anybody wishes to apply for that job, it's available.
So do you think, Lincolnville made a good decision when we were deciding who to send our trash to, the new place? I don't think operates yet, right?
The new place, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't accepted a ton of trash, even though they told us as of April 1st, last year they'd be open and accepting waste.
Just what you were worried about.
And they have pushed the deadline, or they pushed the opening back several times. I would anticipate that they will soon be starting to ramp up and take some trash and see if their process works. The trash that did not go there, or was scheduled to go there, is all gone to a landfill, which is kind of what I would have predicted.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that they'll flip the switch and everything will work as anticipated.
Cause we're gonna reconsider again in a number of years.
The town, the 4 towns that make up Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation, we have a 3-year contract with EcoMaine to accept our waste. It is extendable by mutual agreement for 2 one-year periods after that. We've already been informed that they will not extend it, those additional years. They're operating basically at capacity, and they'd like to know what our long-term plans are. They've actually written the Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation a note saying, hey, what are your long-term plans? Because we ship them approximately 6,000 tons of waste a year. And if you could imagine, if you're operating at capacity, if you're going to lose 6,000, they want to find somebody else to fill that 6,000 because they're generating electricity with that waste. So they're doing their long-range planning. We're not. Well, we're trying.
I'm confused, sorry.
Yeah.
But who are we currently bringing our waste to?
We take our the municipal solid waste to EcoMaine, which is a waste-to-energy plant in
What's the one
Portland.
that's not open?
It's now called Coastal Fiber, I believe. It was called the Fiberite.
Fiber.
Yep.
Okay.
They were going.
Are they the ones that are late in?
Yeah.
Oh.
Fiberite had anticipated opening and being able to open and take waste as of April 1st, 2018, when our contract expired with the Penobscot Energy Recovery Company. But they've yet to come online.
Could you spell their name?
Fiberite,
Yeah.
Fiberighed.
Okay. So we send stuff to both places?
No.
No.
All our municipal solid waste currently gets shipped to Eco Maine.
Okay,
Which
but
is,
that's not a landfill, I thought.
no, that's a waste to energy plant.
Right, okay, because I was writing, I had down that our trash is going to a landfill.
No, the waste that, if we had signed up to go to Fiberite, and about 100 communities did, that waste has been going to a landfill, which is one of the things that I think we were looking to avoid if we could.
All right, anything else for them?
Harbor.
We move on.
Public Works Harbor, on page 17. Selectmen are recommending the same as what was requested, which is percentage-wise substantially more than current year. Dollar-wise, it's $2,500 or so more. It's just getting older and we want to maintain it.
Any questions on the harbor? Nope, let's move on.
Public Works Other. Let's see. There's a substantial number of changes that the selectmen have made to this. McGonagall Dams, they have not made any recommended changes. They were presented with, or received a presentation from Dave Bolstridge, who's the dam agent. I'd like to get that. I'd like to get that title. Dam agent.
Where's the dam agent?
The town of Camden, who owns the east and the west dams that impound the waters of McGonagall Lake, are looking at several substantial projects in terms of cost to those dams in the coming years, and just so everybody's aware, that's likely to increase as time goes on. But
Can I ask a probably dumb question?
there are no dumb questions, Robin. You know that.
So McGonagall Lake is a lake because of the dams.
I believe it would be.
The size in its current size.
Right, I believe it would still be a lake without them,
Right.
but yes.
And the dams are there primarily because of the mills that were in Camden?
Yes, initially they were
Right.
owned and operated by the Knox Woolen Mill, I believe.
Right.
Yep.
So now we're keeping the dams going because we have a lake that has houses all around it
Yep.
and
And people
recreation
people
and
recreate.
stuff.
Yep.
Right. Okay, just wanted to get the historical
Mhm.
context here.
Yeah, and
High tax.
when the town of Camden acquired those, the dams had transferred ownership to, I think it was Knox County Fish and Game Association or something, and then they in turn gifted it with some money to the town of Camden. Since that time, by agreement with the two boards of selectmen, Camden has been paying 2/3 the cost of the upkeep and maintenance of the dams, and Lincolnville's been paying 1/3.
I wonder if your phone can understand the difference between very big difference between a dam agent and a dam agent.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that sometime.
There you go. Damn it. Breezemere Park maintenance. Breezemere Park being on Norton Pond. The selectmen recommendations are in the detail down below, and compared to RC being the Recreation Commission. The selectmen are of the belief that the rec committee on a couple items had underestimated expenses, so they had upped the request a little bit, particularly for maintenance and beach cleaning and picnic tables. They've also taken several items and zeroed it out from the request that the rec commission had made. Namely, they had deleted a ice rescue ladder, providing materials for a canoe and kayak storage rack, purchasing a weed whacker and dog bags. And the dog bags is an easy one to explain. We've got a slew of dog bags in storage here, and
Okay.
we don't go through them as quickly as, and I don't think the
So
rec
we'll still
committee-
have dog bags
Yeah,
down there?
yeah, we're
Okay,
still
great.
planning on refilling the
Doggy thing.
dog thing container. Weed whacker was a question of who'd use it, who would be trained to, where would it be stored, whose liability is it if somebody gets hurt using it, on and on and on and on and on.
Do you recall any of the discussion on the ladder, the rescue ladder?
Yes. Where would it be? Again, who'd use it? And they had a conversation with the fire chief about ice rescue and water rescue and the training that they do, and thought that the current setup was sufficient.
I would imagine you'd have to be trained how to use that too. I mean, it could.
Well, I think anyone, it would be a tragic situation if somebody went through the ice, would want to do the best they could to assist somebody like that, but would it be, in essence, encouraging somebody to try something that they might not really, ought to be doing?
Let's go, guys, lad.
And then
They're gonna take one situation and make it worse, kind of.
Darn kids.
What was the discussion on the canoe and kayak thing?
That the potential program hadn't been fully vetted in terms of how it would be operated, who would get to use it, at what cost it would be used, where it would be located. Just kept snowballing with questions that the Recreation Commission wasn't necessarily ready or prepared to answer. And the selectmen said, if you can't get all these questions, then you can continue to think about it, talk about it, and develop a program and come back. But
If the boat club decides just to cover the cost for that too, would the selectmen be against that?
where would it be located? Who'd get to use it? Not necessarily the same questions, but a similar set of questions would be asked.
So the boat club could come and present to the selectmen, kind of they would do it, and then how they would regulate it, and then.
And the selectmen would then ask questions of whoever came to ask that question and make a decision, if they had the authority to make the decision too. If it's something that is, depending on who's using it, for what purpose, and for what length of time, it might have to go to a town meeting vote.
Okay.
So,
And the other point, may I speak to that?
it's all right with me.
The other point is that land was designated for a specific use when they built it. So if you keep putting things in that land, then you can't park trailers and you can't park vehicles that go out fishing. So that's a big issue. If anybody, I live right near there, if anybody goes there on any day of the week in the summer, that whole section is full of boat trailers and cars and so forth. So it's gonna be a big issue.
And what was the objection if it was on the other side of the property line near the private property line? I don't know the name of the house there. Do you?
Or that little.
You mean on the,
right
The other
inside.
side, not to take up parking space, but if they put a rack in that grassy area.
well, I don't know, has anybody objected to necessarily a rack? It's one of the, it's again, who gets to put their
Kayak on.
kayak canoe on it?
Yeah.
How long?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to, is somebody gonna charge somebody for it? And if it's the town's gonna charge somebody for it, how are we going, who's gonna collect
Who's
it?
gonna police it, yeah.
Who's gonna police it? What happens if something happens to somebody's private kayak while it's on the town's rack, on the town's there's just all, once somebody started thinking about some questions, more questions came up, and nobody had necessarily particularly thorough answers that the selectmen were just not satisfied when.
Well, other towns have it, so maybe they should do a little homework with the other towns and how they manage those racks going forward. Okay, sorry, let's move on.
Let's see. I don't think there was any.
Veterans Park.
No change associated with Lincolnville Beach maintenance, veteran park, same recommendation as what was requested.
I have a question too on that.
Fire away.
Okay, so it shows here that Veterans Park, does it have a budget?
It does.
Okay, all right. So, I know two people who worked on the Veterans Park last summer and neither one were compensated for it because it wasn't being done. Who is in charge of the Veterans Park?
The construction.
No, I'm talking about the maintenance of like taking care of the plants and mowing the lawn around that area.
Well, the lawn at the area, I believe, gets mowed by the same individual that does Breezemere Park.
So he should be send a bill into the town office, be compensated?
We send him a check for mowing at Breezemere Park.
Yeah, right. That's my point. It just says Breezemere Park, but that's added mowing. Anyway, okay, so then as far as the plants and having to tend them and water them and so forth, how is a person compensated for that?
I have no idea.
Okay, so who would I contact on that?
Well, it should probably start with the Veterans Park Committee, for lack of a better word.
And who would that be?
Jay Foster, Rosie Gary.
Okay, that's all, I just need Jay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm done. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Moving down the page, septic disposal contract. We're required to have one, we do. Athletic fields, this is this is another big area of change from what the rec committee had recommended versus what the selectmen ultimately recommended last night. Just to go down the breakdown here, about 3/4 of the way down the page. The rec committee had set forth a plan primarily using contracted labor and equipment for items beyond the routine mowing. We've had discussions with the school committee and the selectmen and our preferred contractor about maintenance, and we basically reverted back to a policy that was agreed upon by the rec committee, the school committee, and the selectmen 6 or 7 years ago. School's gonna mow, as they've been doing. School's gonna apply the fertilizer that the town is going to purchase for them, or for that purpose, they're gonna apply it. The sports field is going to do things that only sports fields can do in terms of maintenance that we either don't have the knowledge, skills, and ability for, or the equipment for. The selectmen are proposing eliminating the use of certain herbicides, is that the right word? Concern is as to human impacts and environmental impacts. They are going to organic fertilizer and organic weed control, thank you. And that's really come forth from the rec committee. And the difference between the rec committees and the selectmen's recommendation is really who's going to apply, who's going to provide the labor for that. They are definitely looking at a greater effort there by contractors than we've had in the past. Let's see, the other stuff I think is pretty well porta potty rental, marking, paint, some other general maintenance items.
Athletic infrastructure maintenance.
Yeah.
Where did the Board of Selectmen come up with that dollar? Do they have estimates for stuff, or
No.
that's just a number they pulled out of their head?
I won't say it was completely pulled out of the air. In the initial budget request, the rec committee had put in some numbers that had come forth to them in terms of improving the courts, which were based on telephone estimates from 2 tennis court companies.
Okay.
We tried to get a little better estimate, but the tennis courts happen to be covered with snow and ice, so it's very hard for someone to look at that. The Board of Selectmen said we want to put some money in for some striping if necessary, and then set aside, hoping that we could get somebody to look at that when and if the snow melts around here. And if it was necessary, have some stock to a nest egg for a future improvement.
Okay.
Or
No, it's just
rehabilitation.
Just curious, because I know the request was 10,000 to resurface the tennis court.
Yep.
And then the selectmen gave 3,500, so I was wondering like.
Well,
That's what maintenance is not
yeah,
even
to
Oh,
go
yeah,
down
it's
those.
not resurfacing, but it's maintenance, so I
Yeah.
don't know. if
To
it's
go
just-
down those items, the selectmen did not want to recommend that the town be involved in purchasing equipment for people to use to recreate. They don't mind providing the space, but
Right.
you go play basketball, bring your basketball, you play this, bring that. And then they were not comfortable with requesting $10,000 based on a phone estimate from somebody that had looked at the site.
Okay, good.
We need to know.
Let's move on, board and committees.
Boards and committees. The only change that's been made here is the selectmen added in those $300 worth of expenses for supplies. They took back out of the administration finance, put back here.
Okay.
100 for planning board, 100 for budget committee, and 100 for board of appeals. And you'll note that, again, in the explanation that the strikeouts, where it said expenses included as part of administration supplies,
Right.
drawn a line through it, because they're not there anymore, they're back here.
Okay. Any questions on that? All right, let's move forward.
Municipal support, the selectmen's recommendation matches the request in terms of the Historical Society, McGonagall Watershed Cemeteries, Library, Memorial Day, General Assistance, Moderator, Ballot Clerks, Registrar of Voters, and the LAA building.
What's the LIA building?
The LAA is the Lincolnville Improvement Association building,
Beach school.
which is an old schoolhouse on the beach road.
It's falling
Oh.
down.
No, it's not falling down.
You been in it? Don't be trashing the LA, all right?
Yeah.
Fighting words.
It needs to be
Uh,
reevaluated.
we-
Evaluated, yes.
We are in the process, the town has owned the building since it was constructed, and it used to be part of the school system. When the previous Lincolnville Central School was constructed, all these little schoolhouses around town were no longer. And the Lincolnville Improvement Association, which had a different name at the time, but I can't remember what it was, stepped forward and asked if they could basically use the building and they would continue with the upkeep and maintenance of it, which they did for about 70-something years. And then a couple of years ago, we entered into a formal lease agreement with them. They continued the maintenance and upkeep of the building. And then when that was renewed, they said, all we're doing is fundraising to keep this old building going. We'd like to, we want to continue. We're getting older, we're losing members. We'd like to continue fundraising, but we'd like to expend it on other community improvements besides maintaining this building. The selectmen took back the responsibilities for the upkeep and maintenance, at least of the exterior of the building. We had a special town meeting, I don't know, not too long ago, transferred some money. We're in the process now of having an evaluation done to the building, electrical, mechanical, structural, hazardous materials,
Plumbing.
code compliance, what did you say?
Plumbing.
Soup to nuts, we anticipate that the initial report will go to the selectmen in about a month.
Who's doing that?
Which facet? the code compliance and the architectural is being done by 2A architects who did this building. They're also coordinating all the consultants. Gartley and Dorsey from Camden is doing the structural. Bennett Engineering is doing the mechanical, electrical, plumbing. AQM Services did the hazardous materials, and if I'm forgetting somebody,
It's okay.
Albertson Builders will be doing cost estimating when we get to that phase.
So it's in its phase, you spend a little money now, get the
Yep.
report, and then
What I would anticipate that the report will come to the selectmen again. I think we've tentatively scheduled that for the 25th of April. That will have all the consultant reports within it, coordinated and presented to us by the folks from 2A Architects. And that will say, I'm just going to use this as an example, the furnace is older than, you know, the oldest tree you can find in town or whatever it is. And when it's time to replace, in all likelihood, you'd want to replace it with, these would be your options, you know, a propane boiler, or oil-fired furnace again, a heat pump, you know, what's your preference kind of conversation. And then when this, that probably wasn't the best example, but when the selectmen kind of lean towards something, they're going to take that back as information, go price it for what it would, not a proposal to replace it, but an estimate of what it would cost to replace windows, if necessary, siding, insulation.
Similar to what the school just did with their building there, you know, what the useful life of equipment was, when they expect to replace it. So it's a long-term capital planning plan, essentially.
Right, or, you know, the selectmen want townspeople to go into this with their eyes open, to say, wow, that's expensive, or, ooh, that won't cost us anything, great. They didn't want to just throw good money after bad without a plan. That's where we are.
Okay,
I
good.
think it's important to note for people that, you know, are kind of newcomers, it's probably one of the only real old historic building the town owns. And that's where the museum is. I mean, there's a lot of this, it's, if you haven't been there, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah.
It's a pretty neat old building, and it's, you know, and they've got this, there's a museum on the second floor.
And they
There's a lot of
would
historical
welcome
stuff.
you to join the Lincolnville Improvement Association. The dues
Back
are
at your keys, you wanna get
dues
in.
are relatively cheap. They have a potlucks
I've only had the
dinner once a month during
After
the
the-
bonfire.
summer months. They have an excellent speaker usually in July or August. That would be me. If you don't hear me talk enough at these budget meetings, come to that. And, but anyhow, so
Good.
that's the LAA building in a long
Thank you.
explanation. You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on this page? Seeing none, let's move on.
Provider agencies, the board of, which is on page 22, the Board of Selectmen recommending what the Budget Committee recommended.
Wow. You know, it's a miracle, isn't it?
I'm gonna turn the page.
Let's move on quickly.
What a change in mind.
I think they were very pleased, I think they were very pleased that
We didn't do
the
that.
provider agencies had actually followed the rules set forth by the Budget Committee. We'll say that.
All right.
Page 23 is the capital improvement program, or what's proposed for the coming year. The requests match what the selectmen are recommending. $20,000 for the fire truck fund, $20,000 for harbor improvements, namely we're looking to replace a float. Road improvement, $50,000. Building repair fund, $50,000, and the solar array purchase, John?
yes, Alright.
One of 3 planned appropriations for that at $20,500. For those that haven't heard, we don't own the solar array that's at the fire station, but we have an option to purchase that. The recommendation came to the selectmen from the energy team, or the solar array purchase committee, or whatever
that was an official committee.
whatever it was called, that we plan on a roughly $61,000 purchase in 3 years, and selectmen are seeking to set aside $20,500 a year, this year, next year, and the year after. The concept being, the sooner you purchase this, the more money you actually save over time. And there's quite a report to back that up. One of the authors happens to be sitting in the room.
David, can you just remind me, WWTF, what's that stand for?
Wastewater
Okay, that's
treatment
right.
facility.
That's right, okay.
Thank you. And that,
That's what closed down.
yeah, if you recall, a couple of years ago, there was some discussion about the Lincolnville Sewer District actually building a plant, which my understanding is they have a project out to bid but haven't opened bids yet. The townspeople ultimately agreed to contribute to the debt service of that. And I believe off the cuff, $19,000 a year, might have been 19 and some change.
19.5.
We still have that money there. That would be, or a portion of that will be our first year payment when they get to the point where we actually owe them money. And then we will be putting in debts. I don't know if we'll put it in debt service. I'm not sure we'll put the actual request in future years, but
Could be a new line on the budget, an annual
yeah,
thing, right?
somewhere. It'll be in the budget somewhere.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Guaranteed. Yeah.
I was told that they have bought a piece of land to be able to put their system in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where is that land exactly?
Do you know where the State Ferry parking lot is?
Yes.
Do you know how you can see between two residences down to the state from Route 1?
Yeah.
Right there.
Oh, okay.
That spot you can see. They're looking to have the majority of their equipment buried in the ground
Mm-hmm.
and have a small building that will be accessed through the ferry parking lot,
Mm-hmm.
so that it'll be lower, that you'll be able to look right out over it, and all the other tankage will be in the ground there.
So they've begun the process now.
Well, we have a set of the plans here if anybody's interested, and they're still crossing T's and dotting I's, but they're.
Well, that's good, because I don't, you know, we all know that, obviously.
Well, I think I don't think they're hope, I think they are racing against the clock at this point, because they wanna get some piping in the ground from that location towards Green Tree Coffee, which is, I think, where they're going to end.
Yeah,
Across the street, you mean?
Because DOT is coming through the
right.
pave,
Yeah.
and they wanna get their stuff in the ground before the road gets paved, so.
What you said sort of alarms me, just because I had been emailing with them asking about what they were doing for siting the building and all, as far as the whole rising sea level and storm surge issues. And were they planning to be high enough? And if they're planning to access from the downhill side and in order to save the view, which is nice, but I hate to see us spending money and 30 years from now we've got issues because storm surge is getting into this nice building that we built so we could all look at the water.
Yeah.
It's still a lot higher though, isn't it?
It's
I think
not
what
that
is.
much higher.
But it's gonna be the sewer district's responsibility, not the town.
Well, it contaminate the town people's property then,
Yeah.
or the town's property.
And I can't speak completely factual and accurate, but I know that is why they didn't keep the plant where the current plant is, that they're acquiring, because of storm surge and potential sea level rise. And I know that they're obtaining the vast majority of their funding from U.S. Rural Development, which is all of us, and they put them through a rigorous program in terms of elevation. I don't know what they've done.
Current elevation, that's the problem.
No. They're well aware of. Well, I think they're well aware
The
of.
likelihood, yeah.
It didn't seem
sea
like
level
the
rise.
requirements were, they're overly conservative.
So I guess Robert, I'm thinking about that location. That parking lot goes up,
The opposite of
and that's probably about at least 30 feet higher than the current sewer system where they're
They-
proposing to put it. When I could,
I'm gonna have to look back in my emails, but
Right.
they were only, they were much closer than that.
Yeah.
If it's 14 feet, I'd be surprised. It was more like 8 to 11 feet. And that's not much with what reasonable projections are for how things are gonna change,
Well,
20,
my
40
recommendations,
years down
maybe
the
you should-
road. I just don't see the point in building something new that you know is gonna be a problem.
Maybe you
in
should
30
go to
years.
one of the sewer district meetings and express your concerns to them in person. I don't think this is the venue for us to discuss it. I think that's open to the public, Robin. I can get you the
No,
date.
I know.
Okay. All right, let's move on.
Flipping the page to debt service, page 24. Guess it doesn't matter what you wanna do, because town pledges full faith and credit to pay this bill, and if we don't, someone's gonna sue us if we ever pay the bill, might as well pay it. We are narrowing in, we'll be
I
in
know.
fiscal year 20, and the last payment on this road bond will be in fiscal year 24.
Good.
Hooray. And that brings us to page 25, which is a summary of all the other pages and the $2,094,256 that the Board of Selectmen are recommending for total municipal expenditures. Down below that are our revenues or budget offsets in terms of non-property tax dollars. Boat excise, vehicle excise, local road assistance, fund balance, municipal revenue sharing, and harbor fees and donations. Selectmen are recommending $1,102,704, which brings us to the gray line of net to be raised from property taxes. Selectmen are recommending $991,552.
I don't see the parking ticket fees in their revenue.
That million comes back to us in assigned fund balance in future years. We're actually pretty good at collecting that revenue.
Good.
excellent.
We don't give a lot of tickets, but we don't wanna give tickets either. Please voluntarily comply with the parking regulations.
It's lower than last year's request, It's
Yeah, I think, I know that the Board of Selectmen were pleased they could make that a little bit lower.
So our tax is gonna go down?
Taxes are comprised of several primary components. County tax, which did not go down. The 5-town CSD or the high school cost, which we haven't even seen I haven't seen an estimate on, I'm sure they're working on it.
It's going up.
The Lincolnville Central School budget, which I've seen a copy of but haven't looked at in detail. The municipal budget and overlay, which is rounding, and are they going down?
So the answer is no.
At this point, I can't tell you.
Okay, that's
But
fair enough.
I also don't know what new construction or new value we will be assessing. I'm gonna think it's probably a couple $1 million worth of an increase, but that won't take care of the county tax.
Okay. Any other questions for David? Well, thank you very much for the very concise overview of the Board of Selectmen's recommendations. Any new business? Okay, seeing none, I'll request that the committee can review the minutes of the last meeting, and then next time when we meet, we can approve those minutes as well as the minutes from tonight.
When is our next meeting scheduled?
I have it in my thing, hold on. It is scheduled for, unless there's a change, today's, what's today, the 26th? April 1st, well, school committee finalizes budget, but we're scheduled to meet the 9th.
Cool.
And that day of the week
Tuesday.
is Tuesday.
So we don't go to the school board.
You could, I think
No,
at the
but I mean,
public
I'm saying
thing.
we don't as a budget committee,
They come to you on the ninth, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they,
so.
The board will be coming here on the night.
yep, on the 9th. Thank you for all the committee members that went to the school budget workshop. I thought that was entertaining.
Sounds interesting.
But if you have nothing better to do.
Right, any other questions?
Could I have that date again, please?
What?
9th,
The 9th,
Tuesday.
2 weeks.
Tuesday the
Yeah,
9th.
thank you,
6
I'm
o'clock.
sorry, but I just,
No problem, and then it'll be the 23rd after that,
okay.
for the public hearing. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Thank you very much. Robin,
Can I
thank you
get a-
again as always for the members.
Oh.
But nobody leaves.
Thank you.
Yes, that's what I was gonna ask. Can I get a picture for the annual report before we get, everyone?
Do what?
Oh,
What do you want?
No, we don't get it this year.
Picture for the report.
Oh,
We're not all here.
yeah, we'll get